Hello, this is your 9.24 tutorial. To begin the drawing, let's go ahead and load our McFatter template. New. Where you've saved your template may vary in location. Mine is saved in my documents. McFatter templates, McFatter AutoCAD. For ease of video, I'm going to turn off the grid. This next step you do not have to do. I'm going to insert the lesson or the problem onto our workspace so that we can see it while I work with the tutorial. All right, so now we can begin the tutorial. At this point, let's start with doing our side view. I'm going to make a 5 by 5 square. Make sure you're always using your ortho command to begin. And just move your mouse across accordingly in the direction you want to go and type in the distance that you wish to travel. When you're done, you can right click and hit enter. Now, the front side has a height of 1.5. So I'm going to select the bottom line. I'm going to use the copy command and go up 1.5. Then I'm going to repeat copy and use the back side of this left side view. Picking a random spot out in the middle of nowhere and coming across. And give it a distance of 1. Right click and enter. Now I can draw a line from the top of the piece to the front side of the piece, which is on the left hand side of this view. Then I now have my diagonal. I'm going to locate the location of where the hole is and where the cut for this cut in is laid out. Selecting this line, use the copy command again. Selecting a spot out in the middle of nowhere, I'm going to pull it out and go a distance of 2 and then 3. So I'm going to type in 2, enter. Then I'm going to type in 3, enter. Now this line right here is going to become a hidden line. So I'm going to select it, change my line type to hidden. And this is going to be the marker for the center line for the hole. For the ease of this drawing, I'm going to draw a temporary circle with a diameter of 1. Using that line right here as my intersection point. And I'm going to draw a temporary circle here of 1 so that we know that that point right there is our circle. Let me go ahead and check and make sure with the dimension that circle is our 1 diameter. Looks good. Just hit the escape key. Now I can go ahead and remove the extra lines that I don't need. These 2 lines here, I'm going to select them and delete. Then I'm going to use the trim command using the slanted line here as a cutting plane, and then removing the excess lines that I don't need. I'll keep this line here for reference. We'll be dealing with that in a little bit. Then we have enough information here for us to start our auxiliary view. Now to continue with the auxiliary view, we're going to go ahead and offset this at any random distance. Distance from here to here doesn't matter too much. Just want to make sure that any dimensions or things do not get in the way of the drawing. So I'm going to use the offset command. And a random number that I'm going to use is going to be 5. I'm going to offset this line out this way at 5. Then the actual thickness of the piece, going from our left-hand side view that we've been working on toward our right, is 5. Since I already have 5 in my offset, I'm going to select that line and do another 5 from there. Right-click, enter. Now I can go ahead and start using the front dimensions or the top dimensions, either or, and start worrying about the thickness of the piece. I have a dimension from here to the center of 2.5. So I'm going to go ahead and use the offset command, do a distance of 2.5, enter. Selecting the baseline and bringing it back to the center. I'm going to select that line. I'm going to change it to a center line so I remember what that line is used for. Next dimension I have is a 1.75. So I'm going to go ahead and use the offset command and do the distance of 1.75. And then I'm going to go ahead and do an offset of 3.25. So hit the escape key, offset command, 3.25, enter. From that same side, coming over. All right. Now I'm ready to go ahead and close these ends up. If I notice, this is kind of like a horseshoe type shape coming across. So I know the top is going to be closed in all the way across. And then I'm going to have a line from here to there, and then a line from here to there. So I'm going to go ahead and draw those lines in now, connecting the front end here, and connecting from here to there, using just basic line command, using the end snaps. Repeat line. Now remember, if you don't have, for some reason, any of your snaps showing up, what you can do is go down to here and turn your snaps on accordingly. And then if you don't have your object snaps there, you can turn them on here. Ortho is located down here. All right. So now that I have this in place, I'm going to now use my side view to project to the auxiliary So I'm going to now start with a line command from the center point of this line, and I'm going to bring it straight across. And I'm going to use the perpendicular snap point to locate that, making sure to select that line and change it to a center line. So I now know where the center of my circle is going to go. And then this cut that's going straight down, I will project the top of it, coming across. And since it's going to stop on this line here, I'm going to go ahead and aim for a perpendicular. If I have a trouble finding my perpendicular, what I can do is hit the Control key, right click, and then set perpendicular as my only snap point. And now it'll go precisely to that perpendicular. And then hit the escape key. I'm going to use the trim command to trim off the axis of this line. And I'm going to repeat the trim command using this, my cutting plane, to cut off the excess of these lines. Now this surface now has its horseshoe shape. I can also now take the circle that I drew here earlier, and I can copy it, bringing it from the center of this object here to the intersection, or where the center is. Now, in regards to snaps, the quadrants will still be at the top, left, right, and bottom. But in respective to the drawing, the quadrants will be located here, here, there, and there. For just naming sake, we're going to project those quadrants from here and here to show the drill that will cut into the piece. Let us first go ahead and draw a line from here to there. This is going to be the line that shows relationship between the two pieces. Drawing here locates it on the bottom. Let's go ahead and make that change. Delete it. I'll draw it in here. The reality of it really doesn't matter, but since we have a example, might as well use it. Now that line, which is going perfectly in line with this drawing, I'm going to go ahead and copy it. And I'm going to intersect right here at this intersection, which is the bottom quadrant of the circle and the top quadrant of this circle. Not to use the quadrant command, which will be located at these locations, but as a reference to the circle in line with the piece. Okay, once I have those lines being projected, I'm going to use the extend command to extend it to the back side of this piece. So what's happening is that we have a drill that's going into this view. As we turn the piece to view it on its side, we're going to be having a drill drilling into the side of this piece here. So with the select of the boundary edge for my extend command, right click, then select the line I'd like to extend, right click, and then enter. All right, I'll repeat that step. You don't have to do this if you've got it. I'll use the extend command, select my boundary edge, right click, select the line to extend, select the second line to extend, right click, enter. I'm going to change these two lines to hidden lines. And now we can kind of see if there was a drill coming through this piece, it would enter at this surface and then exit out this side. We can go ahead and extend our center line, so it's there referencing the center of the cylinder going down. All right, that reference circle I'm going to go ahead and delete. We can see how it intersects visually. So we no longer need that circle. This dimension from the backside coming forward, we're no longer going to use. I'm going to delete that as well. Then I'm going to go ahead and use the trim command. Selecting this line as a cutting edge and this line as a cutting edge. I'm going to select the center line, removing that. And then I'm going to end the trim command, then repeat the trim command. Selecting the auxiliary edge again. And I'm going to remove this line and that line since they're not required in the drawing. Now I want my center line to come out a little bit this side and to come out a little bit this side. So I'm going to use the offset command. I'm going to do a 0.25, enter, offsetting this surface out a little bit and offsetting this surface out a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and use the extend command. Selecting those two lines to extend this line out and this line out here. And I'm going to delete those two lines. This is just to keep in line with the type of line type that it is. So this is the center line. It should be going past the object that it's referencing. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the offset command again. I'm going to leave it at 0.25 and hit enter. Selecting that line and coming out this way, and selecting this line coming out that way. To break, we use the trim command. That projection line. I'm going to change this line type here to Anna, or just a reference showing the projection of our auxiliary view. This next step you will not have to do because this will not be in your way. I'm going to move it off to the side a little bit, making sure that our work area is nice and clean. I may also move my drawing just a little bit over to the right, just to make sure I don't interfere with my 0, point. All right, I have my auxiliary and I have my side view completed. I can now go ahead and work on our front and top view. So I'm going to start with a line command. Project this straight across. And I'm going to select the top. I'm going to project that straight across. Then at any random location, I'm going to draw a boundary line. And now the accurate dimensions will start. From the left-hand side to the right is 5. So I'm going to select that line. I'm going to copy it over 5. Now, since everything of the dimensions are also coming from that left-hand side, I'm going to go ahead and do those dimensions as well without exiting the copy command. I'm going to go ahead and redo the 1.75. 1.75, enter. The next dimension is 3.25, making sure I'm pointing in the right direction to my right direction. 3.25. My last dimension from the left-hand side toward the center is 2.5. 2.5, enter. I'm going to hit the escape key, change this line to a center line. Then I'm going to project a line from the center, coming straight across. I'm going to change that to a center line. Then I'm going to project a line from the depth of the cut on the angle, coming straight across. Then I'm going to repeat a line coming from the exit side of the center line, coming straight across. Now I will change that line to a center line so I can reference that is a center. All right, I can start cleaning this up. Use the trim command, selecting the top, the bottom, the left-hand side, and the right-hand side as cutting planes. Right-click, then do a crossing window, select all the lines on the bottom. I'm going to do a crossing window, select all the lines referencing to the left. I'm going to select all the lines referencing upward. I'm going to right-click and enter. Now these lines right here that are coming up will stop at the intersection of this. That's where that cut stops. So I'm going to go ahead and use the trim command, selecting that line as the boundary edge to remove the access lines there. And since there's nothing to the left or right, we can now go ahead and make that horseshoe shape. Repeat trim, selecting these two lines to remove this and this. One line that I missed to project, I need to project this line here, coming straight across. Excuse me. I click enter. I'm going to go ahead and use the trim command, using the right-hand side to cut this. Click enter. Right-click, repeat trim. I'm going to use these two lines as boundary edges to cut this. And now I can now see two rectangular shapes. These are the rectangular shapes here and here, respectively. Then I have that horseshoe shape coming across, which I can see here. Now the one thing I'm missing here is going to be the circle. The problem with a circle on a foreshortened view is it becomes distorted. I'm not looking at that perfect circle that I had here earlier. I'm now looking at the circle as if it's laying on that face. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to project these hidden lines from here straight across. I'm going to go past the object, just so I know that it's not referencing anything particular besides the hole. I'm going to go straight across here. This is the height of the circle, or in the case of what we're going to be doing is called an ellipse. In order to do the ellipse, I'm also going to need the actual accurate measurement of the circle from my left and right. So since the circle has a 1-inch diameter, I'm going to take this center line, I'm going to offset it at 0.5. Selecting it, moving it off to the left, then selecting it, moving out to the right. Right-click, enter. I'll change these two line types so we don't get confused with center lines to layer 0. And we can see this little rectangle here. This is where the shortened circle is going to go, which is a ellipse. So, in using the ellipse command, we're going to use this icon right here. I'm going to change it to axis end. You'll notice the representation has 3 dots. 1, 2, and 3. These 2 is our controlled axis. This is the axis that is accurate. And then the height is going to be the foreshortened side, okay, of the circle that's rotating on this axis. All right, let's go ahead and demonstrate that by using the command. I'm going to use the intersection along the center line and the other side. And then I'm going to move my mouse up and select the intersection at the top. And the bottom is made automatically. So this is what that circle looks like on a foreshortened view. Now, this is just the entrance of the hole that's going through the piece. That's why we needed the second center line. On the exit side, because of the angle, we're going to have another ellipse on this side, making a much wider circle. I'm going to go ahead and project the lines coming across here, all the way across, and then project it coming all the way across. Now we have a new rectangle here with the distorted view of the circle exiting the piece on the back side. So I'm going to do another ellipse, axis end. I'm going to go ahead and start on the left-hand side and move to the right. And then I'm going to select the intersection at the top. And that's the circle exiting the back side. So this circle here is going to be solid. We're going to have hidden lines going through the piece and then exiting out this hole, which will be a hidden line because it's represented in the back side. And we're looking at the front view. So I'm going to change this to hidden. And then these side lines here and here are going to be changed to hidden as well. And then I'm going to use the trim command using the center line and that center line as cutting planes. I'm going to remove the top hidden lines and the bottom hidden lines, leaving the circles intact. And we can see the entrance and exit of the drill coming through this piece. Very distorted view, but that's what we see looking at the front view. That's the reason why we need to represent this auxiliary view to show that this is a circle going straight through this piece. All right, so now I can go ahead and select these 4 lines and delete them. They're not required anymore. I can then trim using this line of the cutting plane, the projection lines coming across. If needed, I can select this view and move it a little bit to the left or right, depending upon interference or not close enough to the auxiliary view. This is going to differ between where you started these views. It'll come in handy for layout later. Go ahead and escape that for now. I'm going to leave this here for referencing right now. Now, to do the top view, we're going to utilize a trick instead of projecting our lines across and then across this way like it demonstrates in the book, we're going to go ahead and use AutoCAD to our privilege and select this object. I'm going to go ahead and copy that object and bring it back up to here. Just a random spot out in the middle of nowhere, just to make sure it doesn't interfere with anything. And once I have this view up here, I'm going to select it, and I'm going to rotate it. I'm going to use the top of the piece as my reference point. This is 0 angle. So I'm going to move my mouse up so the piece rotates. Now the top of the piece is pointing toward the top view. And I could use this information given here as reference information to project lines across. Very handy trick. So I don't have to keep doing dimensions over and over and over again. Projecting each line individually. This is going to be a center line, so I'm going to change it to center. And escape. Project the circle. Now once I have all my lines projected across, I can now project my lines going up. Change that to a center line. Select these lines, bring them up. Quadrants. And I'm just making sure that when I select these points, that I don't hit any intersections or midpoints or nearest or anything like that. Be clear where you're clicking. If you can't do it from here, then you can always zoom in and make sure you click in a clear area. For example, if I go ahead and I notice when I zoom in, select on that object, I can then zoom out with my scroll on the back. And then I can go ahead and move into this area nice and clean. I want to avoid any of these snap points so that my projection is true. All right, so now projected all those lines. Make our drawing a little bit clearer. Let's go ahead and understand where we're at. We got this piece right here in the front. That's going to have a depth until it intersects at this line right here. That line is the hidden line represented here, projected across. So I'm going to go ahead and trim. I'm going to use that line as my cutting plane. And those two sides here and here, I'm going to cut above. Removing those. I can now repeat trim and select this line and this line as a cutting plane, removing this line and the projected line. I no longer need it anymore. I just needed it for this line right here. I will also take the opportunity, since this line here does not exist in the piece, I'm going to cut that away. You can see that there's no line here on the auxiliary. Enter. The very top of the piece is going to be easy cut. So I'm going to go ahead and trim that out next, using the right and left side to cut away at those two lines and those two lines here as well. I'm to repeat my trim command, select the top portion to cut away at those two and those two lines. Now for the tricky part, we have our elliptical circle located at this location here. We can tell because we have two intersecting center lines, so that's going to be the center point. So this is our left and right side, which are going to be accurate to the diameter of the circle. But because the slope is going in this direction here, the top and bottom are foreshortened. So I'm going to go ahead and use my axis and ellipse again, selecting the intersection on the left, to the right, and then to the top. And there I have it, my ellipse. You'll notice that I didn't project this coming across here because it's going to have there's no circle there because it's flat on the surface, so I won't be seeing it. But the lines that I projected from here across are going to become the hidden lines that are going from the entrance of this and exiting here. So I'm going to use the trim command using that center line. I'm going to trim away this line and that line. Then I'll select this line and this line and change them to hidden lines. So now you can see that cut going in to the back side. I no longer need this line and this line here. I can delete them. Alright, let me go ahead and trim out the rest of this. Selecting these two lines as cutting planes to cut away at this and that, and this and that. I no longer require this view here anymore, so I'm going to select it and delete it. I can now go through and clean up my drawing. Use the trim command to remove this and this here. Okay, looking pretty good. Now to clean up the center lines that I have here as projections, I'm going to need to use some center marks. Unfortunately, we cannot center mark the isocircles. So we have our circle here that we can go ahead and center mark. So we're going to go to the Annotate tab and use center mark, selecting the circle, and it puts the center mark there. I'm going to right click and end that. I'm going to select the center mark and go to the Home tab and make sure that it's on the correct layer. And then I'm going to use the Rotate command, selecting the center of the circle. Now, as long as I'm on 0, there's no rotation, but I want to rotate it in line with the projection. So I'm going to click the end point of that line that I have projected across there. I'm going to hit Escape. Now I can go ahead and select these two center lines and delete them, because now I have my center mark in place for the circle. Next thing I'm going to need to do is center mark this circle, or this ellipse, and this ellipse here. I'm going to go ahead and use the annotate tool again, center mark, and I'm going to center mark that circle. Then I'm going to take that center mark and go back to home. I'm going to use the copy command, grabbing it at the midpoint, and I'm going to place it at every center that I need. I'm going to remove that center, delete. I can now remove the lines that I projected across. So I can now see my center marks. I'm going to go ahead and change those to my center line type. So far, so good, looking very clean. Let's go ahead and change our layer to center. And I'm going to draw a line coming from approximately somewhere on the inside of the center mark. I'm going to pull it back, showing that the center line is coming through that cylinder. And to attach these two center marks, and do another line somewhere approximately on the inside of that center line, and bring it across to here. That notates our center line. So far, so good. We're looking nice and clean. Now, for dimensioning on this auxiliary view, I'm going to use a tool. This is demonstration. You don't have to do this. In align dimension. The problem with an align dimension is that if I place it on this corner here, and I go to dimension the circle, it takes that as the angle that it's going to be referencing, and does that across, and I don't want that to happen. So what I'm going to do is, while I'm on my center line, I'm going to draw a line approximately somewhere along the inside of this. I'm going to bring a center line coming out and intersecting the perpendicular. I'm going to do that again for the top part, coming across and intersecting the perpendicular. I'm going to use these lines as reference lines. I'll select them both and change them to the anno layer. Now, this is the part where you're going to go, starting from these lines, go ahead and we're going to use the align dimension now and go from this edge toward here to place this dimension in at 2.5. And then we're going to go ahead and do another align dimension from here to there and locate this dimension here. Our precision for this drawing is at 2 places. So I'm going to type in dim style, DIM style. I'm going to modify our units, changing our precision to 2 places. Hit OK and close. And now this is as precise as the precision allows. So now we know where the hole should be drilled on this auxiliary view. I am noticing that I did not change the dimensions to the anno layer. So I'm going to make that change. Hit the escape key. Now I'm going to go ahead and start my annotations. So let me go ahead and select anno. Now I'm noticing one thing we haven't done yet, which we should probably have done at the start of the video, is save our drawing. Let's go ahead and save the drawing. Once you hit the save icon, it automatically brings up save as. Make sure you save it in your work folder. This is the 9.24 lesson. So I would save it in the chapter 9 folder. Save the drawing. Now if we have any power outage or anything like that, you can go ahead and have a chance of recovering your drawing. Now we'll go ahead and start putting in the rest of the dimensions in. We don't no longer need align dimensions. We're going to use linear now. And I'm going to go start placing in my dimensions, indicating the top of the piece and the bottom of the piece. Dimension from the back end, just illustrating the depth of how deep this cut is going to come into here. We also need our front view dimensions. Indicated here. Okay, so you got all the dimensions, you got the height still. The overall. I do not want to double up the dimension. I already have the dimension here for the center. So this dimension is not necessary because I'm bringing it across here at the bottom. And we're looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and check out our layout. Let's try an A-size sheet. I'm going to double click on the center area there. I drew all the dimensions at 1:1. Looking at that scale, you can obviously see that will not fit. Let's try an 11:17 inside that layout. Try it at 1:1. Too small. So I'm going to have to change this to 1:2. You notice the dimensions disappear. Because I did those dimensions at a 1:1 scale, they will not show up on this drawing. We'll go ahead and make the adjustments to fix that problem. We'll go ahead and go back to model space. In looking at the layout, I'm also noticing that this view is a little high. I'm going to go ahead and bring that view down just a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Model, selecting this view, and moving it down. Bringing it in closer to the drawing. I'll check that out. Now it's looking pretty good. Now to fix my dimension problem, I'm going to select all my dimensions. Making sure that only select the dimensions. I don't want to hit any of the center lines or anything like that. And I'm going to change them all with a right click, Properties, and where it says Annotative Scale, I'm going to go ahead and add 1 to 2, hit OK, then hit OK, hit the Escape key, close out the properties, and I see no real change here because my scale is 1 to 1, but now when I go to my layout and at a 1 to 2 scale, those dimensions now show up nice and clean. I'm going to go ahead and lock the scale so the scale does not change. Go ahead and zoom in a little bit. Now I still have the viewport selected, so I'm inside model space looking through my sheet. And I'm going to clean up a little bit of these dimensions depending upon where you put your dimensions as well. Because of the size change, you may have to adjust them. I'm going to select this dimension and move this down just a hair. I'm going to also select this dimension, selecting it that grip, and moving it down just a hair. Notice that I'm not on top of the line. I'm moving my mouse out a little bit. Trying to avoid any snap points. As I see it's moving down, I'm just going to move it just a little bit and to prevent crowding there. I'm going to take that, I'm going to move that down a little bit as well. And hit the Escape key. See, nice and clear. All right, looks like we have all our dimensions accounted for. I'm going to click on the outside of the viewport. Review the drawing, looking at what I have here, and then looking at your assignment. Do you have all the dimensions required? I'm missing the dimension for the hole. So let me go ahead and put that in. I'm going to go back to my landscape. I'm going to go ahead and do a diameter dimension on the circle. Let's go ahead and hit Escape. Go inside the viewport first, then use the diameter dimension, selecting the circle and placing that hole right there. It now indicates what it is. I don't want to see the center line that's given by the property of the dimension, so I'm going to select it, right click, Properties, and I'm going to change this under lines and arrows from line to none. I'm going to close that, hit the Escape key. Now that I've indicated all my dimensions, I'm going to select outside the viewport. I'm going to save my drawing. Once the drawing is saved, I can now go ahead and print the drawing. Go to the A, Print, Continue Single Plot. Now in here, I'm already set up because I'm using the correct template. Drawing to PDF. I can preview my drawing, make sure everything looks nice and clean. Once I'm done, I can exit that. And once I've established that everything is good to go, I'll hit the OK button. Once you hit the OK button, a prompt will show up to say that you're ready to save your PDF. Save your PDF in your completed work folder, and then turn it in the way instructed by your instructor. This has been your 9.24 tutorial, and I'll see you in the classroom. Have a nice one.